We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. I believe it's Thursday. I'm ahead one day, so not absolutely sure, but pretty confident it's Thursday. Anyway, I want to thank Eric for being on last night. He always does a great job. I always learn something from Eric. And as I've said before, if you're on TikTok or on YouTube, you should check him out. Analytical Iowan, or Eric, as you know him here on the podcast. Um, this show is going to be just me. This show is going to be mostly about emails. I like these shows. I think a lot of you like the shows too. So we should be in for a good time. At least I'll do my damnedest here. Got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of weird stuff, a lot of stupid stuff, but that would be expected um, going toward the inauguration on January 20th. And that brings me to something just a couple of days ago on Tuesday. They did the final count on the electoral votes. I think a lot of people thought something was going to happen there. Um, so they actually gave the count. Donald Trump won. Nothing unusual happened as yet. I know still people are waiting for something to come out from the Democrats or the DOJ or something to shut this down and Donald Trump not get inaugurated. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Democrats at all. And I'll tell you why I don't have a confidence in the Democrats. For 8, 9 years, they pretty much tried to nail Donald Trump, and he's always slipped out one way or another. And that isn't due to the fact that Donald Trump is so wily, has more to do with the incompetence of the Democratic Party and the DOJ. They not only let him out of things, they also help him along, a la Merrick Garland, waiting 2 years to do an investigation into the obvious crimes that he committed. Anyway, we'll see how this continues. Today is Thursday, and I think that would make it the 20th, which some people are saying that's the day that people will come out from the woodwork and bring evidence that Donald Trump cheated in the election. You know, we talked about that. That's from this executive order that Donald Trump issued 2018. It's executive order 13848 or something like that. And it basically talks about outside influence in elections, particularly from foreign countries, and all the things you can do and how you can delay things. January 20th, December 20th is the 45th day after the election, which is when the investigation is to be completed, if in fact there is an investigation. Then after that, they have 45 days to decide what to do about it. So theoretically, as you're listening to this podcast, something could have come out about it. And if it did, I'll do another podcast in addition to this podcast and we'll talk about it then. But I'm not all that confident in the Democrats. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here because I'm usually pretty positive, but I try to be pragmatic too. I mean, I'm not going to find joy in something just to make me feel better. It's a matter of what's true and what's possible out there. And I just haven't seen a lot of hope coming out of the Democrats. And as proof to that, let's talk about AOC, Jerry Conley, and Nancy Pelosi. Now, AOC was looking to be the ranking member in the oversight committee, and she would have been a good choice for that. And it looked like she was going to have it in committee, and then we'd be done with it. But at the last minute, old Nancy Pelosi, from her hospital bed in Luxembourg with a brand new hip, snuck in Jerry Conley, a representative. Now, Jerry Conley, I don't have any problems with him. He's a decent enough guy, but he's 74 years old. He's white, and apparently he's battling cancer. Why can't Nancy Pelosi just let AOC have this? Why can't she do that? Well, then AOC took it to the next step and said, okay, if you can't let me have a chance here, I'm going to take it to the full House and we'll vote there. And she thought she might have a chance. But as it were, she did not. She lost in the full House. So Jerry will be the ranking member on the Oversight Committee. And there's a lot of people pissed off about it, quite frankly. I'm pissed off about it. Apparently, the Democrats don't learn any lessons. We have a lot of old people in the Democratic Party. Joe Biden won, and I'm not talking shit about Joe Biden, but he's old. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and those kinds of people. Jerry Conley, who's 74 years old. And here's the deal. One of the reasons Democrats lost the election in 24 in November is because we're not playing the same game as the Republicans. These folks are looking back to the 2000s and the 1990s and how the rules were then. Well, it's changed vastly since Donald Trump stepped onto the scene. All the norms and all the rules, they don't matter anymore. They don't exist. So for Democrats to play within those rules while the Republicans don't, you can see the unfair advantage that the Republicans have. So after getting beat on November 5th, you would have to think, well, maybe I'll learn a lesson here. Maybe I'll change things up. Maybe go with the youth movement, deal with the folks that are trying to determine their own destiny while all these other fucks will be dead. That seemed like the logical choice. I thought the Democrats would have learned something, but apparently not. Apparently fucking not, because Jerry Conley will be the ranking member in the Oversight Committee. The day's going to come, though. These people can't live forever. Nancy Pelosi, what, she 84, 85 years old? She just had her hip replaced. She's in Luxembourg. Bitch, quit. I mean, Jesus Christ. You're old. You've got as much money as you could possibly ever want. You got a beautiful house. You're elderly. Go home. Bathe in your money. Sit in front of your 90-inch TV and watch your stories. Don't fucking keep doing this. I'm getting tired of it. We need to make some dramatic changes to the Democrats in order to win in 2026 and 2028. But if the old people are still there and sticking to the old rules, they don't have a chance. And this is what frustrates me about Democrats at this point. They don't frustrate me as much as Donald Trump. Actually, Donald Trump at this point, there's only so much we can do. You just have to laugh at this fucking clown. He announced the other day that he was going to sue the Des Moines Register and this Seltzer woman who had the poll in Iowa that showed Kamala was going to beat him in Iowa. Clearly, she was wrong. But apparently, Donald Trump thinks he can sue her over that. I don't know how he's going to pull that off. Donald Trump will claim he's going to sue a lot of people. He either drops the charges after a certain point or he fucking loses. Donald Trump isn't saying he's going to sue somebody so he can make money typically. I mean, if he can, that's great, but it's more a bullying tactic. Oh, you mess with me, you cross me, and I'm going to sue you. He's probably done it all his life in his business, and it probably worked when he was back in business. But look at all the lawsuits. Look at all the ridiculousness. And he's going to try to pull that shit more and more as he comes closer to being president and after being the president. Now, of course, you heard the story that Donald Trump was asking to get out of his case in the Manhattan district, the 34 felony charges. He felt he should be let go because, well, he's president now and he's got immunity. The only problem with it is Donald Trump committed the crimes with regards to the Manhattan district prior to being president. He knows that. They know that. And the judge came back and said, sorry, that's not going to be the way it goes. Now, Donnie got pretty upset about it, apparently. And what he did was he had his lawyers come back with something else. Oh, I've got evidence. There was problems with the jury. There's funny stuff on the jury. Can't wait to see that evidence. Donald Trump apparently has an aversion to evidence. He doesn't accept the evidence against him, and he never can pull up the evidence he claims he fucking has. I'm just anxious to see what's going to happen with this 34 count felonies. He was convicted by a jury of his peers. Do they delay the sentencing till after he's no longer president, or do they sentence him and delay the sentence till after he's no longer? I don't know what's going to happen. But Donald Trump's tried to slip out of this, and it ain't working. It ain't working. It's not working with the lawsuits either with Letitia James or or E. Jean Carroll. The fact with E. Jean Carroll, he's already put the money in a bond. Once he loses the appeal, money's gone. So it doesn't have to come out of his pocket anymore. It already did. Letitia James got a portion of the 450 million, like 175 million. When he loses that appeal, he's going to have to come up with the remaining amount, what, 375 or something like that? Or 275, another 275 million dollars. Hopefully he's got a grift working. Hopefully he's got that working because he's going to fucking need it. Other thing we heard, Luigi Mangione indicted on one charge of first-degree murder, two charges of second-degree murder. One of them has to do with terroristic effects or attacks. So we aren't surprised that he got indicted, and they talked about some evidence. It sounds like they've got some pretty damning evidence, as much as people out there are saying, well, we're not sure it's him. Did he really have the gun? I don't know what's going on with that, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And his lawyer said that he's not going to plead guilty. He's going to plead not guilty or innocent. So there'll be a trial, and that should be an interesting motherfucking trial. One other thing that's going on, Congress unveiled a stopgap spending bill ahead of the Friday shutdown deadline. Yeah, we got all this other shit going on. We weren't even talking about the shutdown deadline on Friday. But the Republicans have a lot of incentive to get this done. At least most of them do. And it looks like they are going to get it done. They have a plan that apparently enough people have agreed on. They unveiled a stopgap spending bill that will keep the federal government funded through March 14th. They couldn't come up with a deal. It's again another stopgap deal or a continuing resolution. You would think if we put people in the House of Representatives, pay them a lot of money, they could actually do the fucking job they were hired for, but apparently not. They're going to provide more than $100 billion in emergency aid to help states and local communities recover from hurricanes Helene and Milton and other natural disasters. This would prevent a partial government shutdown to begin after midnight on Friday. It would kick final decisions on the budget year spending levels to a new Republican-led Congress and President-elect Donald Trump. The continuing resolution continues current spending levels with the agencies. Now, some of the things that were included in here, some Republicans ain't happy about it. And that's the problem. They're going to wait till next year to cut this deal. But the fact is the House of Representatives is going to have a thinner margin. So if they had a tough time now, they're going to have a tougher time then. And now it's all on the Republicans at that point. So we'll see what happens. Anyhow, we have a bunch of emails, and we're going to go through those emails as we do. First one isn't an email. It's an actual letter. My green screen background is messing with the letter. Okay, there we go. It's a letter. Somebody sent me a letter via the snail mail, and they had a reason for doing that. And I'll read the letter that prefaces the emails that apparently I didn't get. It says, hello, Mike. Hope all is well with you and yours. I'm enclosing a copy of my email that I've sent 3 or 4 times now from 2 different email addresses, but it keeps getting missed. I sent one on 11/9, 11/11, 11/16, and 11/16 again with a different email. Perhaps they're getting caught in your spam, junk, clutter folder. Anyway, I figured that resorting to the old-fashioned method would be my last resort. If you don't respond to this one, I'll take the hint and stop sending you in the future. Thank you and keep up the good fight. Best regards, Mike T. Maryland. I don't know. The email looks familiar, like I've seen it at some point, but I've checked my emails and I don't see those emails here. I checked my spam file. It's not in there either. So I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know. So I'll check into it further and see if we can figure it out. But we do have your email here. Okay, it starts out, tried sending it to you 3 times through my Gmail and so forth. Hello, Mike. Wow, just wow. The outcome of this election was not what any of us were expecting. I was right with you there on the logical thought process for the projected Harris win. I also I was also telling my friends not to worry about the polls, but be sure and do your part to vote. Unfortunately, it's apparent that we were all blindsided by the misogyny and racism that lives within our fellow countrymen, and it just sickens me to realize this fact. The day after the election, as I scrolled through my Facebook feed, I was taken aback by the number of friends that I have that were posting their support for the win. Some were subtle and jovial with their post, while others were nasty and spiteful. Many of these friends I knew were Trump supporters already, but some I did not realize until that day. I began to snooze all of them as I could not take seeing all this junk in my feed. I must have snoozed over 30, I think he means blocked, over 30 friends in the last several days. If they showed any support for Trump, I snoozed them. I began to think about Christmas coming with my family. My wife and I always host my family and sometimes a couple of friends to celebrate Christmas. My family consists of my brother, his wife, and 3 kids, my sister and her fiance, my cousin and his wife and daughter, all of them with the brother's wife was telling us not to get COVID vaxes. Bill Gates put tracking chips inside and it wasn't tested, and we would die if we took it. She was so sure of it all. After some back and forth, I told her that I don't agree and she needed to stop talking about it. Last Christmas, when my brother's wife was talking about Trump this and Trump that and kept referring to him as our president, even though Biden was president, I would bite my tongue in my own home to keep the peace among family. She is also a devout Christian, but has no issues with her president's behavior, saying we are all sinners. Well, if she was a devout Christian, she wouldn't support Donald Trump. This world is full of fake Christians, and that's just my aside. I told my wife the other day that I was considering canceling our Christmas celebration with the family next month, as I don't know that I will be able to hold back my tongue. And then when they start touting their praise for Trump, I've also seen many creators that I follow stating that they were going to turn their back on Trumpers in their lives. And I'm right there with that way of thinking. Why would I want to have these people in my life when we are so very different? That's kind of what I've said. I've said that it's one thing if we have a different political opinion. That's one thing. But when you have somebody who's tried to overturn elections, undermine democracy, overthrow this country, marginalize LGBTQ, people of color, put women in danger, essentially mount a war on women, there's no compromise there. There's no middle ground. These people are fucked up and dangerous, and the other people are trying to be decent. There is no middle ground there. There is no compromise. I then thought about this more and broader. So I'm going to build a wall between my family and friends over our difference. This isn't exactly what our enemies, Russia, North Korea, etc., are trying to have us do. They want us to be divided, to make us weak, chaotic, and vulnerable. They despise that united we are strong, the strongest nation in the world. So herein lies my dilemma, which I'm still trying to grapple with. Do I build the wall, shun my family and friends, furthering the agenda of our enemies, or do I bite my tongue and suck it up to keep with some sense of togetherness, knowing in the back of my head that I'm on a completely different page than they are? I just don't know. This one is really hard for me. I'm curious as to your thoughts about this. Do we build the wall with our fellow countrymen, causing a greater divide and wedge, or do we suck it up or simply agree to disagree and try to keep the wall short and passive? I'm leaning towards the latter, but it's going to be very, very hard to do. All the best to you and yours. P.S. I've been a loyal daily listener of yours now for several years. Please keep up the fight in the daily podcast. We are here with you, listening and supporting you. I sent you a Trump action figure in an orange jumpsuit a year ago or so. I was hoping that at the end of the year, we'd actually get to see him behind bars. But unfortunately, I'm afraid now that this will never happen. Yeah, I got that action figure. That's kind of cool. It's sitting on a desk of mine in back, and I appreciate that. I was hoping to see him in jail too, and I still think that's a distinct possibility. But in terms of what do? Do you build the wall or do you play nice? Well, I'm not as great a guy as some people are. I prefer to build the wall because here's the deal. Just because we're in the same room together doesn't mean we have unity. We have some people that are about destroying this country. And when they destroy this country, it's not so much affecting me, it's affecting my kids and grandkids. That's a bridge too far. There is no empathy for that, there is no forgiveness for that. There are some situations where you have to be commingled with these fucks. What I do in those rare occasions I have that, I just don't interact with them at all. I don't interact with them at all. Keep myself busy with other reasonable people, but mainly I try to avoid them. Um, you can't have unity with somebody who thinks the way they do. It's better to have unity with the like-minded folks and try to use that to your advantage as opposed to having interlopers or infiltrators in the midst of some good people. These are bad people. And I think it's always wise to stay away from bad people. All right. This one comes from Lori. It says Executive Order 13848, Trump created, Biden renewed it. There will be a report. I hope we get to see it. If we do, Mike, please do a podcast. One report said because of unprecedented challenges, and it looks like things in some counties in PA went from blue to red on 2 years. Not sure what is going on, but remember they shut down the GA voting because of Russian bomb threats. It's sounding like reality rather than conspiracy. I hope they don't F this up and get us the info. Now, that's what I was talking about before, this executive order that Donald Trump signed. It says there's supposed to be a report 45 days after the election. That would be the 20th. I think that's today. And then another 45 days to decide what's going on. If there's a report, I think if there was a report and a proper investigation done, they would find some inconsistencies, some problems. My question is, did the Democrats do it? Did the DOJ look into it? Did all the three-letter agencies look into it? If they did, they'll have to come up with some report. And if they come back and say, nothing here, everything was cool, then we know the fix is in. A lot of people are counting on this to happen. And I hope against hope that it does happen, but I'm not that confident about it. Again, it's not because I'm trying to be negative. It's just that I'm being pragmatic here based on what I've seen in the past. People want very badly that Donald Trump not be elected president. So people will jump on any bandwagon. I won't do that. I just won't do it because I don't want to disappoint people. You know, people take what I say to heart. And it was bad enough when I said Kamala Harris was going to win, take that to the bank, and she didn't. Now, the reason she didn't win may be because of those election inconsistencies. I don't know. But Donald Trump can commit all the crimes he wants. But if they don't hold him accountable, what difference does it make? I'm hoping the Democrats are doing the right thing. I'm hoping the agencies are looking into it. I'm hoping that something comes of it. But until I see it, I'm not that confident in the Democrats. I think the Democrats have a long way to fix themselves, and they aren't even fucking close to it right now. All right. The next one says, hi, Mike. I listened to your live you posted as a podcast with TJ, Eric, and a few other added guests. I love that. It was good, and I hope you will do more of those. Very informative. Thank you, Jules. Yeah, actually, I think I'm going to. At first, I was reluctant to do it. You know, the trouble with doing a live and taking people on as guests, unless you know who they are, you can get some fucked up people, and things can go awry really quickly, go off the rails really quickly. But I think I may do one yet this week, at least with Eric and I, and maybe some other people if they come up and I know who they are and I know they're not going to fucking be idiots. But thank you for that. Yeah, I liked it too. It was good. It was nice to have that extra interaction. All right, the next one says, Dear Mike, ever since the election results, I had to wipe away my tears and start on fighting for our rights and the country. The people that Orange Boy is packing into his cabinet is a complete junk drawer, but I'm glad that Matt Gaetz dropped out as Attorney General due to his drugs and sexual assault allegations. I didn't even want to listen to you when you were owning the Trump humper on the Rational Boomer podcast. I took some time away from listening and watching the news, but I decided to get back into the Rational Boomer podcast, and I'm willing to tune into your show. I like the Not a Podcast episode and hearing the listeners every week. I truly want Kamala Harris to be the next governor of the state of California and show her prosecutor and attorney general personality. I texted my friend who lives in Tucson, Arizona, and I said that the Democratic Party should reform their party and align themselves with the middle class, including what Eric and TJ and Lee said in the TikTok Live. I wish you and your family have great holidays, but we have to keep fighting against Trump and the Republican Party. Trevor. Thank you, Trevor. Trevor's, I think, out in the northwest part of the country. He was on the show a long time ago. All right. Hi, Mike. Tortoise Media, our brilliant young people's news agency in central London that has their finger squarely on the pulse of the insidious relationship between Russia, British MAGA donors, and the MAGA movement going back to June 2016. Brexit referendum, which was actually fake news dry run for the first Trump election. Remember Cambridge Analytica. It's a compact, daily readable blog with a British perspective on U.S. influence on UK and UK influence on Trump. Chris. Well, thank you for that. We'll check that out. When you're looking for news, the places we would normally go, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, none of them are telling us the truth or telling us the whole story. So you have to look at other options. I look at AP, I look at Reuters, I look at NPR, I look at BBC. Those are all reasonable and relatively reliable sources. All right, next. Hi, Mike. Gen X Blue Dot in Ohio. I'm listening to you with Old Soul. How fucked up are the Trump-la-fucks when Old Soul is calling them assholes? She is one, if not the sweetest people out there. And for them to get that from her, they're so fucked, and it will be a long 4 years for them. Keep up the great work, Rodney. Yeah, when you get Old Soul riled up and emotional, you're doing something. You're doing something, no question. Hey, Mike, I listened to your debate with the Trumper, if you can even call it a debate. Although I almost feel bad for the guy, I feel that you handled it with as much seriousness as you could. I believe that that is the way we should be approaching them now. Let them know how pissed we are. Let them know none of their beliefs they have are based in fact. You left that guy speechless because he got what he's been given out and he had no idea how to respond to it. This is how we need to deal with these people. Be loud, be obnoxious, and just don't shut the fuck up. Blame every single failure squarely on the Cheeto Benito and blame their dumbass for voting for him. It's honestly pretty fun to mess with them once you figure out how. Another thing is, I looked today at the stock market, and United Healthcare stock has plummeted in days since the CEO's assassination. Blue Cross Blue Shield reversed its anesthesia decision just hours after revealing it due to the backlash. CNN and MSNBC are both losing credibility and ratings every day. Walmart has taken a big hit as well. All of these prove a point. Public opinion is still very powerful and an effective tool. If things get real bad, we can organize these greedy fucks and bring them down. These are just a few of my thoughts. Thanks again for what you do, Mike John. I appreciate that very much. All right. Hello, Mike. I hope this finds you and your family well. It seems like there's so much talk about. For starters, I truly enjoyed you roasting the Trump-la-fuck Brian Wallenberg. I didn't stutter. They put that in the note. I tell you, I had to listen to it a few times. Let my sister Cheryl listen and this lady friend. I turned this lady friend onto your podcast. I keep sharing it with friends. It's funny. The only thing those fuckwads spew is we won. Gas prices and the price of eggs over and over again. If they had half a brain, they would be dangerous, or had any idea, it would die of loneliness. I want to say, Mike, I can see before that Brian bowed, I can see in his eyes he had enough. I bowed out. I could see in his eyes he had enough. I know you intimidated that old boy. I want to say the young gentleman by the name of Jay, the Gen Zer, was great. He was very intelligent. I learned stuff from him and about Canada. I don't blame him for leaving. That man knows what he wants. Good luck to him. He certainly has my respect. Hey, if I was young like that, I would consider going up to Windsor and hiring out on the railroad. My sister Cheryl said hello. She watches your podcast. She is busy with work and all. We truly love your podcast, Mike. I share your podcast as much as I can. Have a safe and blessed night. Keep up the good work, buddy. Steve. Well, thank you very much, Steve, and Cheryl too, his sister. We hear from them a lot, and I'm always excited and glad to hear from you folks. And I appreciate the support. And I think you're absolutely right. The way I dealt with Brian was partly out of my own anger and because I know how these people behave. I gave him exactly what the Republicans have been doing to the Democrats for 8 years, talking over them, talking into them, talking through them, being obnoxious. When he said to me, if I could get a word in edgewise, that made me feel so fucking good because that's what I was intending to do. I wanted to make sure that he knew what it was like to be rolled over. And that motherfucker got rolled over. There ain't no question about that. All right. We're going to move on to the next one. Okay, this comes from Panzer, so you know what we're in for. Hi, Mike. I have an important message for all Republicans out there. I just listened to your debate with drunken, toothless, high on something Brian. Man, did you get your ass kicked? True Republicans know that he totally won on exposing all the Republican lies, corruption, and I cannot stress this enough. They're total ignorance. Mike, I'm sorry, but this guy knows less about everything than you do, and it was so obvious. Compared to that guy, you are a lightweight. If anybody wants to know what a Republican truly is and operates, people need to listen to ignorant and stupid Brian. He's the proud embodiment of MAGA. Go MAGA, Panzer. And for any of those of you that are new to the podcast, that is satire. He's being sarcastic. He's not being true. So don't get mad at him. It's kind of clever, kind of funny. And I appreciate it, Panzer. All right. Next up. For over 150 years, USA and Canada have shared the longest undefended border. We have pretty much got along with a free and easy relationship. Trump's talks of tariffs and making Canada the 51st state will damage this relationship. Americans should realize that the USA is losing its status in the world. We do laugh at Trump and shake our heads at MAGA. Soon only the US citizen with a shot at the American dream will be wealthy. While Trump bows to Putin, talks about NATO withdrawal, and builds his DC cesspool, BRICS corrupt billionaires and other power brokers will fill the voids left by an isolationist USA. Trump and MAGA will expire. It may take 10 to 20 years, but Trumpism will fade, and result will be a weakened USA both internally and on the world stage. However, like-minded folks like yourself and your audience will lessen the damage. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, you're right. We can't help but have some damage. You know, Donald Trump, that's what he is. He's a destructor. He comes in, tears things down, fails, loses constantly. That's what's going to happen. And that's what people who voted for Trump voted for. I don't know that they realize that. Maybe some do, but not all. And they are going to be really surprised what happens when Donald Trump gets his hands on shit. All right. Thank you, Paul. Next one says, Dear Mike, have you heard of Nick Hanauer? Beware, fellow plutocrats, the pitchforks are coming. The pitchforks are and should come. I hate to sound dystopian, but where we are, it feels dystopian. Talk loud and keep pushing back. People power. Love what you're doing, Boom. You're breeding hope. We are our own, but we have each other of a like mind. Beth. Well, that's true. And it does sound a little dystopian. But I will tell you, these billionaires that we are ready to eat, they are cowards too. Their only concern is the bottom line. And when enough people hate them, they'll make changes because they don't want to lose money. But you're right. We have to be loud. We have to keep pushing back. We have to hold people responsible for the bullshit they're doing. And there's a lot of bullshit being done. So we've got our work cut out for us. Don't expect Donald Trump or the Republicans to shore things up. They will just make it worse. The only people here that can save this now is we, the people. I don't even know that I can count on the Democrats. I've been counting on them for the last 4 years and they've dropped the ball every fucking time. So I don't know. It's going to be on us and we got to keep it loud. All right. Next one comes from Victoria. She says, I appreciate you very much. Keep up the great work. I would like to hear your perspective on my thoughts regarding Doge. Who's paying for this or any person doing any work? Is it completely voluntary? And what business does this organization have to do in areas that they shouldn't belong except to lobbyists? Who's paying the bill? It does take an act of Congress to develop a government department. I'm not sure they have access, but Musk seems to have his nose where it doesn't belong. Victoria. Well, you're absolutely right. This is not a legitimate department or organization. This is outside the government. And when they're outside the government, they are little more than lobbyists. They come in and they try to convince members of the House of Representatives or the Senate to do their bidding. But the one advantage Musk has is he has Donald Trump's ear. And it'll be interesting to see how much influence Donald Trump will have on the House and the Senate, the Republicans, that is, after the election. I've said before, I think Donald Trump's value to the Republican Party is more now and leading up to this election than it will be after he's elected. There's really nothing more he can bring them except fucking problems, crashed economy, and a lot of embarrassment. So I have a feeling after he's elected and in office that the Republicans will start to push back. There'll be very little he can do at that point. I know as president, he thinks he's omnipotent, but he's not. When it comes to trying to get rid of the 14th Amendment, doesn't work that way. Trying to create your own department within government, can't do it. And that's why Musk and Ramaswamy are on the outside of government. Now, people will say, well, because he's got Donald Trump's ear, Musk will be able to convince them to do things. I disagree. Musk tried to convince the Republicans in the Senate to make Rick Scott the majority leader. Didn't work. They made John Thune, a more reasonable human being, as the majority leader. They also wanted Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, and we know how that turned out. I think there's a lot of Republicans that will tire this guy sitting outside of government stepping on their toes. I also think that at some point, Donald Trump and Musk will go their separate ways. You've got two narcissists. They can't coexist in one spot. Somebody will have to go, and that will be Elon Musk because Donald Trump will be president. In case you're wondering, I'm drinking ginger ale. The reason I'm drinking ginger ale is because sometimes when I do these shows and it's just me and I talk straight for an hour and 15 minutes or so, I suck a lot of air and it gets me a little nauseous. And when I get done with the show, I don't feel great. And I don't like that. So I'm trying to avoid that. It's not always, every once in a while, but I'm not one that gets an upset stomach. So I don't like it when it happens. All right. Next one says, hi, Mike. I've recently started listening to your podcast and enjoy it very much. Thank you for what you do. So we know that Trump won't be able to do all of the horrible things that he's promised, but there is a good chance he'll be able to do some of it. The frightening part is not knowing what he will get done. That being said, I like to be proactive. And on November 6th, a small group of like-minded people I know started talking about ways we can try to buffer our households against the upcoming chaos. I would love ideas from your listeners on what kinds of things they are doing to prepare. I'll start. Number one, some of us combined cell phone plans to save money. Number two, cutting off cable since we are no longer watching mainstream media. Um, Number three, for as much as I hate gardening, we will be planting a garden next spring and processing and freezing as much of our own food as we can. One of the things I'm extremely worried about is him pulling back regulations on food processing and the negative impacts on safety that will inevitably result. I love listening to Old Soul for this reason, ways we can all pull together to survive the upcoming years. Not paranoid, but cautious, and none of those things can hurt, even if it turns out that they're unnecessary. Would you ask others for their ideas? Sure, if you've got ideas, send them to us and we'll get them out there. Thank you very much, Sherry in Michigan. Well, that's the one thing about these presumably rough times that are ahead. When things like that happen in this country, this is when people tend to come together and help out. As Old Souls talked about, she's got a group in her neighborhood, elderly folks watching kids so they don't have to go to daycare for ridiculous amounts of money, and getting food for the kids and doing a bunch of different things. And of course, what Sherry's talking about, it's all a good idea. And as she says, even if it's not necessary, it's a good practice. You never know when you're in a situation where you need other people. And this is the time to reach out to those people. And this is the time to accept other people. As I said, in dire times, and I'm not saying that they're going to be dire times, I don't think they will, but in dire times, people come together. I mean, we saw that in the Depression. There was a lot of getting together. There's in some of the urban communities in the 70s, they had the rent parties, and I think that's a good thing. We've got a lot of people either divided or just minding their own business, kind of being isolationists themselves. And we do need some unity to gain some strength in the people of this country. So if there's something that comes out of this that's decent, maybe that's it. All right. The next one says, hi, Mike. Margie here. It was happenstance that I heard your first audio podcast on Spotify in early 2024. I then found you on YouTube. I enjoy your programs and your commentary, and your cussing cracks me up. This feels like a safe spot to share my thoughts on current events with ease. It is a safe spot. I was born in 1961 in Austin, Minnesota. Yes, home of Hormel and Spam. I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was born in 1960, so we have some common ground there. My mother and I then moved to Washington State, where I lived for 41 years. I since have migrated to Houston, Texas, and have resided there for 7.5 years. My daughter and son-in-law invited me to move here to be a first-time grandmother, and now they have blessed me with 3. I have 2 sons that still live in Washington. All 3 of my kids are 40 years old or knocking on it. Rather than making this a very lengthy email, I will chop them into occasional emails. Vent session 1. A, the irony about Trump suing ABC and George Stephanopoulos is degrading to this country. Trump accused George of defaming him by stating that Trump was convicted of rape, but Trump states it's only sexual assault. Seriously, both are classless and criminal. And Trump is right that on the paperwork from the lawsuit, it does say sexual assault, but then later the judge said, well, according to the terms of the law in the state of New York, it is in fact rape. So the judge did say that. And George Stephanopoulos wasn't wrong. ABC and Disney just bent a knee, gave him $15 million with hope of some accessibility or some deference down the road. It was a fucking bribe, basically. Next up, it says, hi, Boomer. Just saying I wanted to leave the country too initially after the election. I don't have the luxury or know if I have enough fight to hang in there for another 2 to 4 more years. I'm in the fall, winter of my life. I'm truly tired. However, I'm struggling to hang on and continue to fight for my grands. My granddaughter is planning a wedding. She just turned 20 to a MAGA, and she has converted. We live in a red state. They don't know that I know, and they're all hiding it from me because they know I will cut his balls off and choke him with them if he gets her pregnant and doesn't get her to the safe state. I might be calling old soul. The military is in their future, so we shall see. Now, my 12-year-old grandson cannot stand Donald Trump, and his father tries to brainwash him to the MAGA side, but he's too smart. And of course, I get the blame. We're at standoffs. Imagine that. Imagine that a 12-year-old kid is smarter than his father. That's got to be happening a lot when it comes to Trump-lefucks. All right, she goes on to say, please tell Jay that we really need some up and coming gens to maintain the fight. They are the face and the future of tomorrow. Without them, there won't be one. I would like to touch on one thing that is a little disturbing to me about what Jay said about the two-party system. My father and I talked about this many times before he passed away. Neither of us felt that a third party is a good idea, aside from the slothy Democrats that did not get out and vote. Another prime example of failure in this election, as it did with Ralph Nader during the Bush and Gore election, was the third party vote. Yes, our own did not pull their weight, but all those independents not voting for Trump or Kamala was part of the reason for the failure to elect Kamala in 2024 and Gore in 2000. Independent voters or third-party voters have done nothing but screw up elections in this country. I'm certainly not happy with Democrats, but it has come down to good or evil. I choose the lesser evil of the two, Democrats. I hope Jay will consider this in his thinking. He's young and does not speak from experience, but rather the desire of his convictions. That's a good start. It reminds me of the thinking in the young gen minds over the Palestinians and the Israeli vote. Their hearts are in the right place. However, they are not experienced in the complexities of the situation between Israel and the Palestinians and the U.S. While the elders of the Democratic Party like Schumer, Pelosi, Bernie, and the list goes on, it's time to pass the torch. Mike, you are passing the baton. You, as much as they, will be an example as gens navigate their political waters. I see you not only as an optimist, but somewhat schooling them along the way. What you say is impressionable, not different than when we were young. We learn not only from our experiences, but from the ones who came before us, both good and bad. It is my hope we can encourage them to do whatever they have to do to get the tools they need to come back and do this right. You can push back a little for a greater good. It's not just about what we want, how we feel, and the things we need, but rather the nation as a whole. As long as you're steering the ship, you are the captain, the knowledge and the wisdom. They seek to grow into the roles they will soon be expected of them. You do a damn good job at being realist, but don't be afraid. Like the father that you now know how to be a guide for them as well, as they have much to learn. Success follows sacrifice and perseverance. They must learn to fight and not be armchair opponents. Thank you sincerely. Contrary, Mary. P.S. Jay mentioned Doug of Canada speaking out against Trump's tariffs. Thank God, because it's going to take somebody like Trump to stand up to Trump. It takes one to know one. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It's going to take somebody like that to stand up to Donald Trump. And that's been my whole point, really, is that, we spent the last 8 years taking shit from Donald Trump and the Trump-lefucks. They talked over us. They talked through us, and they lied. They flat out lied. They placed blame, and they were loud enough where some people, maybe not the sharpest amongst us, bought into it. They bought into it. And that's all it takes. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have not learned this lesson as yet. I learned this lesson very young. When I was a younger kid, I had my bullies. And, I kind of demurred and I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to get hurt. Eventually, I was told, look, you got to stand up to them. You got to slap them in the mouth. Otherwise, you're going to deal with it forever. And ultimately, I did that. And the advice was right. The advice was absolutely right. And so I tell everybody I talk to now, do not take shit. And if they give you shit, give it back worse, because that's the rule that apparently works now. It's not the prettiest, it's not the most socially acceptable, but that's the way it is. And as I told people before, at this stage of the game, we can't worry about taking the high road or being the nice people or the right people. We've just got to focus on winning and doing whatever it takes to fucking win. All right. Now, I was talking about this budget thing that they presumably got agreed upon. The Republicans really need to do this. And they presumably were going to sign this continuing resolution on Friday. Of course, there's the disruptor in charge, the king of chaos, the dirty diaper, Donnie Trump. He came out and he threw a little fly in the ointment. President-elect Donald Trump called on GOP allies in the Senate to help curb Democrats' last-ditch effort to nominate as many judges as they can before the inauguration. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is poised to lose his status as the chamber leader next year, needs to confirm just 2 more judges to lifetime terms this week to surpass Mitch McConnell's record of 234 set during Trump's first term. The rush for nominations drew Trump's ire, who expressed his grievance on Truth Social on Tuesday night. Now, this is to all Senate Republicans: no deal with Democrats to fast track nominations at the end of this Congress. I won the biggest mandate in 129 years. No, you didn't, you stupid motherfucker. You barely won. I will make my appointments of very qualified people in January when I'm sworn in. Good luck with that. Trump's post also comes as Senate Republicans express anger with some Democrat-appointed judges canceled plans to retire in response to the GOP blockading President Joe Biden's final judiciary nominees. He also made a comment about the budget thing and no deal with Democrats. That's Donnie, the disruptor in charge. Nobody's listening to your shit, Donnie. Up until the time you become president at that inauguration, nobody's listening to shit. Nobody fucking cares. All right. We've got some other information about RFK Jr. Imagine this, some scandal or lies going on with RFK Jr. This should help him get confirmed. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Apparently omitted some extra income. Yeah, he omitted $500,000 in income regarding anti-vax deals he was involved. I'm not anti-vax. Well, you made $500,000 fucking crowing about it. So yeah, you are. And some law income as a lawyer. Who would hire that motherfucker as a lawyer? So we'll see how this we'll see how that turns out with his confirmation hearings. I also talked a little bit about Nancy Pelosi. And a writer basically said what I said regarding Nancy Pelosi sinking AOC's attempt to be the leader in the Oversight Committee. They said breathtakingly counterproductive. The writer says Pelosi's victory over AOC cost the Democratic Party. So Nancy Pelosi secured a victory on Tuesday at the cost of the Democratic Party, according to a writer at the New York Republic. Pelosi, 84, apparently helped nix Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez bid to become ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Instead, they went with Representative Jerry Conley, a 75-year-old white guy who revealed a throat cancer diagnosis last month, defeated Ocasio-Cortez in a closed-door vote, and then they took it to the full House. Why does Nancy Pelosi have any pull anymore? She's not the Speaker of the House. She's just a representative. I know she's Speaker Emeritus, but that's just a job. It's not like it has any power, but people will take as much power as you give them. And that's what she did. And it goes back to what I was saying before. If the Democrats hope to improve their lot in the 2026 election and the 2028 election, they got to make some changes. And the first change is get rid of all the old fucks, or at least take them out of a position where they have power. This is a young man and a young woman's game. This is about their future and their destiny, not our future and not our destiny. Why can't we just let them have it and figure it out for themselves? And Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, she might be getting herself in a little bit of trouble too. She literally threw President-elect Donald Trump's promise not to cut Social Security on the floor as she met with House Doge Caucus for the first time on Tuesday. As Greene was heading into a meeting with the caucus that will give recommendation to Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, she was confronted by advocate Alex Lawson, executive director of Social Security Works. We're bipartisan, Lawson explained, presenting the lawmaker with a document detailing Trump's promise not to cut Social Security. And Greene insisted, no, you're not. You're out here asking bullshit questions. This is a mailing. This is Donald Trump, Lawson said as Greene snatched the document from him and threw it in the air. You know what? We don't care, the lawmaker ranted. Oh, you don't care what Donald Trump has to say. Margie, that's not going to get you a position in the cabinet. I'm sorry. That's Donald Trump's mailing, Lawson pointed out. This right here is for Democrats' ads to attack Republicans, Greene insisted. Will you pledge to take Social Security and Medicare cuts off the table? Lawson asked. She said, I don't need to take a pledge because guess what? The sad story for you is the American people elected Trump, his agenda, and Republicans to lead the country because you guys suck so bad. So sophisticated, isn't she? I'm just wondering if you want to take the pledge or not to not cut Social Security or Medicare, Lawson repeated while Greene walked away. See, this is the thing. Amongst themselves, they talk about cutting Social Security. They talk about cutting Medicare and all that stuff. But when confronted in public, they act like they never heard anything about it. But this is the problem. They tell you one thing and they do another. And the question is, when are you going to fucking get a clue? When are you going to learn a lesson? They tell you they're going to do all these wonderful things and then they kick your ass. Jesus Christ. I mean, the ignorance is absolutely amazing. It's truly amazing. And I was talking about this earlier. You know, Donald Trump tried to get his Manhattan District case, 34 felony convictions, dismissed because he's going to be president. Or no, because he has the immunity thing from the Supreme Court. And of course, that doesn't apply in that case because the crimes were committed prior to the time being president. So that was a no-go from the judge. We're still waiting to hear from the judge regarding his ask to be dismissed based on him just being president, because it's the right thing to do. He's going to get turned down there too. So now Donald Trump is a little desperate. He doesn't want to be embarrassed. He doesn't want to look like a fool, which is funny because he always looks like a fool. So he's got to come up with something else. If they won't dismiss it because of this or because of this, he doesn't know what to do. Usually people fold up and die for him, but not this time, not this fucking judge. So President-elect Donald Trump's attorneys are continuing their fight against the hush money conviction by arguing that grave jury misconduct tainted the verdict, although prosecutors called the allegation vague. Details of the supposed misconduct were redacted from court filings made public Tuesday. Trump's team has been fighting to have the case thrown out entirely by arguing the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in July on presidential immunity invalidated it. The New York Supreme Court Judge Juan Marchand decided Monday, however, that Trump is not immune to the charges because none of the relevant conduct involved official presidential acts. Rather, the central case was an effort to conceal allegations of sexual encounters with a porn actor from the emerging in the days of the 2016 election. So Donald Trump is now trying to say, well, I should be dismissed because of this, or I should be dismissed because of that. Oh, those don't work. So I'll just say there's some problems with the jury. This is what Donald Trump does. And here's what we know about Donald Trump. He always fucking fails. He always fails. He's a fuck up. He's incompetent as hell. He is desperate to find a way out. See, this is the thing with Donald Trump. He usually tires people out. He says, whenever he was in business or even when dealing with Republicans, he'll just tire them out. He'll come up with some other angle. He'll elongate this whole argument and people say, fuck it, just take it. We can't do that. We can't do that as the people in these courts cannot do that. He was lawfully convicted of 34 felonies by a jury of his peers. You can't just say, oh, that doesn't count anymore. That can't be done. They're not going to do that. So we are going to see Donald Trump wiggle and waggle. And when he becomes president, he'll try to flex his muscle, but he doesn't have any muscle. He can't change a conviction. It is what it is. The lawsuits he lost, they are what they are. And those lawsuits, and frankly, even these convictions are all state issues. Donald Trump, as the president of the United States, only has some control over federal issues. And he's going to be in for a surprise when he realizes he's not an all-powerful king. There are some things he can't stop. There are some things he can't shut down. And he will whine and cry about this, and he'll make threats. I'm going to sue the judge. I'm going to sue this person. That's his normal ploy. I'm going to sue everybody. Donald Trump typically loses the lawsuits. The only lawsuit he's ever technically won recently in the last 5 years or 10 years is this thing with ABC. And ABC just gave in to him because they wanted something else down the road. Like I said, it was essentially a fucking bribe. I think the worst part of dealing with Donald Trump over the next 4 years is up to this point, we're just tired of dealing with the bullshit, the whining, the crying, the lying, the cheating, the stealing, the corruption. We're tired of this shit. And we thought that when Kamala Harris was elected, we'd be done with it. Well, fuck that. Fuck me running, as some people will say. Donald Trump is back, presumably. And we may be in for as much as another 4 years of the same old bullshit. I wonder, in those 4 years, will people who voted for Donald Trump finally become tired of the bullshit and tired of the fucking failures? In normal circumstances, I would say anybody reasonable would, but these people that voted for Donald Trump, they certainly are not reasonable fucking people. They're dumb as rocks, and they're in a cult. And we as a people, like-minded, reasonably minded people, are the ones that are going to have to take them out. We're going to have to beat them in the election in 2026. We're going to have to beat them in the courts, but we're going to need a little help from the Democrats and the DOJ. And so far, they haven't been worth a shit. So we've got to push them to make sure that they do their job and we get some things done and there is some accountability. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking time and listening to the program. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.